our very first concert at King's Place on the Wednesday evening, we begin with Haydn's Symphony No. 21 in A major, which is one of these symphonies that begins with an entire slow movement. The latest scholarly thinking on Haydn's symphonies is that unusually the harpsichord wasn't included in the textures of his symphonic music. And at the beginning of the symphony we have a beautiful slow melody which is actually extremely sparse. Although we have first and second violins, they're playing in unison, so they're playing exactly the same line. Similarly, viola, cello and bass play exactly the same line. So in fact this melody consists of the only harmonic content. All we have is a melody and a bass line and nothing in between. And these figures, well, the first four bars of the strings sound like this. Then the oboes and horns have a little linking passage, and then exactly the same thing happens with the strings. And again the oboes and horns take over. Then their little 3-bar phrase transposes us into another key, so the same figure is then stated a third time in a different key. And then we've got used now to expecting this very sparse 2-part figure, and we've heard the music 3 times, so we expect a relatively short unit. Haydn then extends and fleshes out the harmony, so we get the next passage sounds like this. Etc. And it to me the beauty of the 2-part writing, it feels, or if you're almost not aware, it's something he does in his string quartets a lot. You'll suddenly notice when you hear the string quartets live that actually 2 of the players aren't playing, and it feels like it's completely full music. And he does this with the symphonies as well. And also just having set up an idea, the way he extends it. It's something actually that I find very similar to Mozart's final year, when a lot of Mozart's very late music, thinking particularly La Clemenza di Tito and the final piano concerto and the clarinet concerto, Mozart reverted to a very similar style where there's a lot of sparse texture, sometimes even just one line unaccompanied. And this seems to me something that links. Of course, Mozart and Haydn were a mutual admiration society. They both adored each other, and Mozart was very rude about nearly all of his contemporary composers, but Haydn obviously he absolutely revered and I think learned a lot from. The Farewell Symphony, the title gives an indication of what the music is about. This was written in the first full summer when Haydn and his orchestra were in the brand new palace in Esterházy. Now, all of the court musicians, including Haydn, were living in Eisenstadt, which was the town where Prince Esterházy's normal residence was. But in the summer, with this new palace, they decamped, and they had been, I think their contract stipulated that they were to be there for 6 months, and for 6 months their family weren't allowed to be with them. So by the end of the summer, the orchestra were getting really rather tetchy and fed up of being away from their families for so long. And because the prince had this new toy in this fantastic new palace and with a new concert hall and a theatre was being built, he stretched this 6 months, and eventually it stretched to 10 months. They were away from home for 10 months. And the orchestral players were saying to Haydn, look, we know you're a servant, so you can't overstep the mark, but is there any way that you can just subtly hint to the prince that it might be time that we went home to our families? So the ending of the Farewell Symphony, which, as I say, I'm not going to ruin, Haydn solved miraculously the problem of how to hint to the prince that it really was time that the players were allowed home.